Hello. Thank you for coming back to my channel, or welcome if this is the first time. My name is Jennifer, and this is Jen the Bookworm. Today I'm bringing to you the end of the month wrap-up for August and my TBR for September. So August was a little bit weird for me in that I did DNF a book, but and then I added some books to my TBR. So things got a little bit shuffled around, and about about a week and a half before the end of August, I had already already come up with what my TBR was going to be for September and October, and I'm like, I'm ahead of the game. Then I DNF'd a book. And the second book in the duology, the first one I DNF'd, the second book was on my TBR for September. So I just realized today when I went to film this that I did not have my TBR set. But I do now have a game plan for this month. So last month I read 4 books in August, and that's more books than I've read before since I've been doing booktube, since I've been keeping track. I read Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, and that was a very good experience. It did take just a little more than half the month for me to get it all read, though. Not just because I'm reading by audiobook, and it is slower to do it like that. But also with kids, and my daughter had a summer enrichment program, and other responsibilities and stuff. Just took me a while to get through that book, but it was so worth it. It was definitely, well, I give it a 4-star. So I'm a little conflicted because I've seen other booktubers who give like 4.5 stars or 4 3/4 stars. We'll round it down, we'll round it up, and I kind of struggled with, should I round? I don't always give books a star rating, but I have in the past sometimes. So because you can't round up or you can't do a 4.5 or 4.75 or whatever stars on Goodreads or on Audibles or any of these rating sites, really, you can't do half stars. I decided to just do 4 stars or 5 stars. It's either 4 stars or it's 5 stars. It's not 4.5 stars. And then Oathbringer came around. And Oathbringer, I give it 4 stars, but I kind of want to give it more, but I don't quite want to give it 5 stars. So I'm kind of conflicted. But the reason I wouldn't give it 5 stars is mostly there's a couple of things in the book that I sort of understand why some people have criticisms of this book. I loved this book, but I do kind of understand, and I can't really say a whole lot because I don't want to give away the plot of the book or give it away for anyone who's still reading. But there are some things about this book. It didn't always feel like there was as much forward momentum in this book as there were in previous books. And that's about as vague, or that's about as precise as I can get about it. Although I enjoyed it, I can see why some people didn't. And there were a couple of times when I started to feel like, maybe we could move on. It still didn't feel like a slog. It still didn't feel like I was just dragging myself through it. I still enjoyed every bit of it. And as a matter of fact, as I was getting to the end of it, I was on Discord, and there were some people that were on there saying, oh, I just started this book, or I'm about halfway through this book. And I'm just like, on the one hand, I am so happy that I got done with it. But on the other hand, I'm kind of jealous of them. They're still getting to experience it for the first time. So I still really loved this book, but I can see why some people had some issues with it. But that was a big book that I read. And then I read Jimbutcher, the Dresdenfiles. I read Blood Rites, which has been on my TBR for a couple of months. And I didn't get to it last month. But I was sort of a little bit dragging my feet just because it had been so long since I'd read the first 5 books. It was like 2018, possibly 2019, but I think it was 18. Was the last time I sat down when I got done with book 5, then I was like, I'm going to take a little break. And I took a little break. But I really wanted to get back into it, especially since a lot of new books have come out over the last couple of years that people are raving over, and I'm just not there yet. I want to rave too. I want to get there too. So I picked back up the series, and I was really worried about picking up the series and not rereading. I really contemplated whether or not I should reread. And I didn't. I watched some spoiler reviews for it, for the ones that I had already read, actually, which helped to remind me, jog my memory, some of the things that had happened. So on the one hand, I'm glad I didn't reread because I don't have time for rereading. I'm really trying to actively not reread. But on the other hand, there are a couple of things I feel like, did I miss that? Or is this just, sometimes when writers say in the past a character went through this thing and it's not something that they actually wrote about, it's just something that they want to have be part of the background of the character. There are a couple of things mentioned. I couldn't tell if it was background or if it was from a previous book that I'm just forgetting. So one day maybe I will reread from the beginning to the end this series, but I didn't want to reread right now. So I read Blood Rites, and then I started to read the Sticks of Crows book by Leigh Bardugo, and I DNF'd it, and I did a whole video on that, so I'm not going to belabor the point too much, but I'm half concerned that I DNF'd it because it wasn't Dresden Files. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for that. Maybe I was just in the mood to keep going, because it really only took me 2 days of listening to get through Blood Rites, and it was great. And I love the pacing, I love the action, I love the humor. So when I DNF'd that book, I went on to read Deadbeat by Jimbutcher. Deadbeat is book 7 of the Dresden Files, and it was a very good book. It's dealing with zombies, and I thought there was a couple of cool things in this book dealing with zombies that I had not seen before. Once upon a time, I used to try to write books for role-playing games. And I don't know if anyone does role-playing or if they've ever heard of the Fudge system, but I wrote a vampire book for the Fudge system. But I wanted my vampire book to be based on something other than Bram Stoker's Dracula or Twilight. So I decided to do some very heavy research into vampires. And I did research on different cultures' takes on vampires. And so there's a lot of things, a lot of different mythologies surrounding vampires. And many of these attributes of vampires do not make it onto the big screen or into novels. Some of them do, but many of them do not. I've never done that kind of research about zombies. So some of the things that have made it into this book, this might be like, well, yeah, this is common mythology for zombies and stuff, and I don't know that. But there are a couple of really kind of interesting things. I'm not giving anything away when I say this, but there was those that raise zombies have to give the zombies a beat. They have to do some sort of percussion because it helps control the zombie. It reminds them of their heartbeat when they were alive. I've never seen that before. I mean, I haven't read a lot of zombie books, but I watch zombie movies. There's never a percussion, somebody keeping a beat for them. So I thought it was really interesting. I thought that was a really interesting aspect of that mythology. And it was a very good book. I really enjoyed it. Again, it only took me a couple of days to get through. And I had a couple of days till the end of the month, so I went on to Proven Guilty, which is book 8 in the Dresden Files. So I read 3 Dresden books this month. Again, Proven Guilty was very good. I can see what some people are saying about how more complex the story starts to become. It's moving away from Monster of the Week while still somewhat keeping that feel. It is kind of moving away from Monster of the Week, and I really enjoyed. I enjoyed Proven Guilty. I enjoy where the character is going. I enjoy some of the moral dilemmas the character is having to face. There are a couple of dilemmas that the character. There's a couple of scenes that if the character was a little less clueless, he'd be better off. But there are a lot of moral dilemmas that, I mean, I know what the right answer is supposed to be, but I can understand why people wouldn't make the decisions they're supposed to make. I understand why it's a moral conundrum, you know. But those are what I read in August, and I really enjoyed my August reading experience. I read 4 books. I'm hoping to read in September. I'm hoping to read 5. Now, a couple of these are kind of small, so if they're not real big reads, then I should be able to get through more books than I had been in the past. So the first, these are in no particular order. The first book on the series, or on my TBR, is going to be the brand new Stephen King book, Fairy Tale. Now, it doesn't come out until September 6th, so I've got a couple of days before it comes out. I want to fit a book in before then. But I have been wanting to get back into Stephen King for a long time. I really enjoy many of Stephen King's stories when they're adapted to the screen. And I really feel like with all books, with all screen adaptations, whether it's movies or TV shows, I feel like you miss out on some of the depth that the book will provide. So I know I really like the adaptations, so I really want to read some of his books. So I'm hoping that this new book will be a good book. I love the premise of it. It's kind of a portal world type thing, where a boy develops a relationship with an older neighbor who dies, and he has a portal to another world, and I'm looking forward to reading it. So I have that coming up, and I'm going to be doing that as a read-along with a couple other people on the Grimoire Discord. They are reading the same book at the same time, so I'll have hopefully interesting conversations and thinking about vlogging the experience, so we'll see if I manage to do that. The next book in my TBR, in no particular order of reading, is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. As I said before in a previous film or previous video, I was advised to read Warbreaker and then go into the Mistborn series and put off reading the rest of Stormlight Archive until I've gotten a little bit more of Mistborn under my belt. So I am doing that. Not really sure why Warbreaker first. It's not part of it's a standalone book within the Cosmere. But I'm just taking it on faith that the people who told me to do it this way know what they're talking about. So I intend to read Warbreaker. I also intend to read White Knight, which is the next book in the Dresdenfiles series. It's book 9 by Jimbutcher. And I'm planning on listening to that as well. Doesn't look like it's a very big book, like 14 hours or something like that. So I intend to carry on Dresden. I won't be reading Dresden in October, because October I intend to read more thriller, creepy horror books. So like the rest of booktube seems to be doing. So I'll be putting it down for a little while, but I may get back into it November or December. So I had a couple of spots that I had a couple of books that I needed to fill in. I had to change my TBR. So I decided to pick up Stoner by John Williams. I did a video, a book haul video, where I talked a little bit about this book, and I was mistaken. For some reason, I got the impression that it was a almost autobiographical book of John Williams. It's actually about a person named, whose last name is Stoner, and it was a farmer who goes on to college but really falls in love with academia. And it's not a very long book, but I keep hearing what an excellent book it is. I believe it's a classic book, and so there's not a whole lot of classics that I can say that I really love. But I'm really looking forward to reading this, given the reaction that it's had, that a lot of other people have had to it. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's on my TBR. It's only like 9 hours or something like that. I don't think it'll take me too long to get through it. The last book is kind of a surprise even to me. I wanted another book. I thought, it's 5 books that I'm putting on my TBR, which is more than I've read for YouTube thus far. But, every month I've been reading Brandon Sanderson books that are really long. So I thought I'd try to fit in a 5th book, and I was going through my wish list on Audibles, trying to see what have I recently put on my wish list that I want to give some attention to, that's within a good probably no more than 20 hours of listening time, and I was thinking I picked up or put on my wish list a book by Kelly Armstrong. She wrote a series that a few years ago I read and I really liked, and I can't remember what the series was called. It's like the Otherworld series, something like that. I don't know. If I find it, I'll put it up on the screen. But it started out with a book called Bitten, and it was a werewolf book, and the second book in the series was a werewolf book, same characters, and then it kind of moved to in the same world, but different characters. They were witches, and then it all kind of came together, and it was a long series. I read about, 7 or 8 books in, and I really enjoyed the books, and they ended up adapting it to a TV show, Bitten, which I liked the TV show too, although it didn't closely follow everything in the book, but I did enjoy it. So she just came out with a new book in a new series. It says it's part 1 of a series, but I think it just came out, so I don't know if it's just that she knows she's going to write more in it, or if there is more. The book is called City of the Lost, and it looks like a really interesting premise. These people live in this town where people go to start over, to forget who they were in the past or whatnot. And this person is a detective who has in her past killed somebody. And so I don't know exactly. I try to only skim the synopsis at best, so that I don't, because sometimes people who write the synopsis, sometimes they put things too much in there, and sometimes they don't put enough in there. So I try to skim it to see, will I like it, without reading the whole thing through in depth, because I don't want to get spoiled. But I think it's the detective is trying to find a serial killer or something, and so I'm interested. I like the author. I already know I like her stuff. It's the start of something. So right now I don't think there's another book out in the series, so it'll be a 1 book read for right now. So it seemed like that would be perfect. So I'm doing that for September. City of the Lost by Kelly Armstrong. So hopefully I like it as much as I liked her other stuff. So that's my TBR for September. I am looking forward to reading many of these books. I've been, been looking forward to in one aspect or another for a while. So it's exciting that they're all on this month. And I really hope that I get through all 5 books in this month. And maybe this will be the start of me being able to ramp up a little bit. I don't think I'll be able to ramp up to the amount that some people do. I don't think I'll ever I've read 17 books this month, but that's okay. I make my peace with that. 5 books I think is a pretty ambitious. That's more than a book a week, but some of these books are kind of small, so we'll see what we do. So that's what I have for you today, and I hope that you enjoyed listening to me talk about the books that I read, and I hope that you enjoyed listening to me talk about the books I plan to read. Hopefully I will be able to get that vlog, and I'll be able to check in kind of throughout reading Fairy Tale, and we'll see how that works out. And I will check in towards the middle of the month to see how I'm doing. Thank you very much for spending your time watching me. If you like this video, please consider giving me a like, a subscribe if you haven't. Please leave a comment in the comment section. What are you reading this month? What's the biggest book that you're reading? Not the biggest as in page count, but the one that you're most excited to read. What's the books that you're most excited that you're planning on reading in this month? Do you plan on reading fairy tale? Are you planning on reading the new Kelly Armstrong book? Leave me a comment. Let me know. I'm interested and happy to talk about books. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.